What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, I'm going to do a review for WandaVision episode 4. This by far was the best video of the season. There's just so much to unpack here. I know I found myself enjoying it along with my fiance Natalie. This was just a step in the right direction by a long shot in comparison to the first few episodes. We got a lot of content to break down, and for this week I'm gonna do it in like a top 5 what we know and what we don't know going into this episode and moving forward. So yeah, we're just gonna get the ball rolling. So my number 1 what we know is that Monica Rambeau, the main character of this episode, her mom has died due to cancer. So she's no longer going to be in like her storyline or like a parental figure or even like a mentoring figure for her. But a question I did have in regards to her passing of cancer is like what kind of cancer did she have, and was her cancer due to her powers that are from the comics? And I'll get back to that when I get to the encyclopedia later, and we break down what her powers are and how she got them in the comics. But I'm just curious to see like how they tie in her sickness to the source material and where they go from there. Moving down to number 2, I had Maria Rambeau was the founder of S.W.O.R.D. So it's important to remember that she was friends with Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel from the Captain Marvel movie. So Captain Marvel having these powers, bringing the scrolls back to Earth, and really showing Maria that there is like otherworldly beings out there, that they're not alone in the universe, was like the first step in them creating this S.W.O.R.D. initiative, kind of like S.H.I.E.L.D. was, in charge of solving problems on Earth, whether it came to like Hydra or other like Nazi or bad agencies around the world. S.W.O.R.D's supposed to do that same stuff, but like on a galactic level. So it's cool to see that she took that influence from the events of Captain Marvel, the Captain Marvel movie, and is now like the director of S.W.O.R.D, or was the director before she passed. So that's pretty cool, and we found that out today in the 4th episode. Moving down to number 3, I had that we finally know why WandaVision was written as a sitcom, and I had a struggle with this in like the first 2 episodes because I kept telling myself like, there's not enough content in these short sitcom style episodes. 1, it's just too short, and 2, because of the way they write it to be like, like they make jokes in front of like an audience, a live audience or whatever. There wasn't a lot of like plot details and progression of the storyline, but we now know that that's because the S.W.O.R.D agents that are like in the bunker, that are like studying what's going on with the anomaly, they can only receive the frequency information and like the radio broadcast because it's like a vintage TV style. So that like explains the sitcom, right? They're seeing it on the old TV with the antennas and everything. It's catching the frequency, and then it displays on the TV as a sitcom from the 60s or 50s, 60s, and 70s. So the first 2 episodes were 50s, 60s, and I think we're up into the 70s right now. So depending on how many more episodes we have, we still have to hit the 80s, the 90s, and then maybe even get to like present day and our current timeline. So that was number 3. Number 4, for what else we know that Vision is actually dead. Like, it's not like some kind of they didn't bring him back to life. Like, they didn't repurpose him as like a android. I know there's a lot of questions like, oh, how is Vision in this series if Thanos pulled out the Mind Stone and basically left him like a vegetable. But we can see that Wanda sees him as like the perfect Vision that he is. Never harmed, like just like imagine like the perfect apple off of the tree, right? No bruises on him, nothing. Whereas like the audience, us and other people in Westview, they might be seeing him as like the Vision that we got to see. He's all gray. He's missing the Mind Stone. His eyes are rolled back. He's dead. He's basically a lifeless robot. So we do see that she sees him as like his healthy self because that's a projection of what she sees. But a big question that I had with that, that I'll get further into detail, is if Vision is like a projection of her mind, then how is it that he can breach? How is it that he can breach the simulation in certain parts of the episodes? But I'll get back to that. And number 5, for what else we know, is that we know that the characters within the in the Westview location, they have been identified as like legitimate people within the MCU. So I didn't get a chance to really do a frame-by-frame breakdown of the episode when they were doing like that detective wall where they have like all of the people that are trapped within Westview. But we can see that they all have like legitimate identification in the real world. So it's not like everybody in the Westview location is a creation of Wanda. They are real people who either lived in Westview before she took it over, or maybe they were passing through. Whatever happened for them to get there, they once existed in the outside universe outside reality of the MCU. So moving down to the top 5 of what we don't know, I found myself asking a lot of questions this episode, and along with that, we also got a lot of answers. So this, to me, was a good episode to really question where the progression of the storyline is going. And my number 1 question I had was, does Monica or did Maria ever have their powers as Photon or Spectrum from the comics? In the scene where Monica goes back to the Sword headquarters, you can see a picture of her mom. It says Maria parentheses Photon Rambeau. So I'm wondering if they just call her Photon out of like sheer fun, or like she actually got her photon powers from the comics and that was like her superhero name. And is her daughter going to take on the name of Photon, or is she going to become Spectrum? We don't know that yet, but I'm going to go through, bust out the encyclopedia again like I did last week, just so we can do a little dive into who these people are from the comics and if they're going to keep it related to how it was in this source material. So right here it says Photon. The first Photon was Monica Rambeau of the Avengers. So clearly they skipped Maria Rambeau because they're already saying Photon was Monica. But I think they just did that as like a generational thing, kind of like how Captain Marvel, she in this movie was, or in the Captain Marvel movie, she was like the first generation Captain Marvel. But in the comics, there was a Captain Marvel, and then there was Captain Marvel. They kind of skipped that continuity in the comics, or in the MCU, and I feel like they're just doing it just to kind of differentiate themselves a little bit. And then let's see here for Spectrum. Here we go. Spectrum. So this is like another name that they give her. So like, for example, when Captain America lost his shield at the end of Civil War, he went under the name of Nomad in the comics. So it's the same person, just a different name. So right here it says Monica Rambeau was working as a lieutenant in New Orleans Harbor Patrol when she was struck by an extra-dimensional energy from an energy disruptor. So this is what I'm talking about. Like, if they explain that her mom has these same powers, or that this is how she got the powers, then potentially she could have maybe gotten the cancer, or gotten this could have been the cause to her cancer. Yeah, it could have came with like her powers and all that, but with great powers comes great repercussions. I guess, like we could say that Hulk, for example, let's say like as he gets older, the gamma radiation really affects his body, his bones, his muscles, and he could have some form of cancer. But as of right now, they haven't discovered anything. So that's what I'm wondering, if either Maria or Monica or whoever the hell has the powers in the MCU as of right now, if they will ever have like repercussions to their powers. And then here it says what their powers are. So Photon can turn into any type of energy, including light, electricity, microwaves, radio waves, ultraviolet waves, gamma rays, or lasers. She can travel at high speeds, the speed of light, and fire blasts of whatever type of energy she comes across. So I think it's like, out of that, what I really picked up was that she can also become gamma radiation. So like, let's say you pair her with the Hulk and the Hulk's losing a fight. If she can channel somehow some kind of gamma radiation and push it into the Hulk and just fuel him to become even stronger, kind of like how Superman just absorbs the sun and then he becomes stronger, I think that'd be a pretty cool pair to see. But for like practical purposes, I don't think she will physically become the light energy or electricity or gamma radiation. I think she'll somehow manipulate it like with her hands. Moving down into the second, what we don't know is Wanda fully in control of Westview? And this was a question that Natalie and I were asking, because going back to Vision and like how he breaches the simulation, if she's the one who is making this projection of Vision and it's coming from like her mind, how is it that Vision can breach the simulation if she's in control of him? If she's basically projecting his thoughts and his ideas and what he says, how can somebody who is literally a projection of someone else become sentient and have its own like mind? So that was a question I had, and I'm curious to see how they answer that. And I have a little theory that I'm working on to potentially answer this. Another question I had was, what role does Agnes have in this whole storyline and the whole simulation? This was the first episode where we didn't see any of the other like Westview residents, I guess you can call them, throughout the episode, other than like flashbacks. And they didn't really dive much into who they are or what they could possibly be doing there. So that's a big question that we don't know, or at least I don't know for as of right now. My fourth question, which wasn't as important, I feel like, was why Westview and how did Wanda get here? Is there something important about Westview that drew her there, or did it just happen to be like a wrong place, wrong time kind of thing, and Wanda showed up here, had a mental breakdown, and now shit's hit the fan? So that was what I was wondering. And then question 5 that I had was something that I've been wondering is where exactly does this take place in the MCU timeline? I know I was talking to my boy Greg. Does this take place before the events of Far From Home, after, or concurrently? How does this show move the MCU forward based on where it is in the timeline? So yeah. And then the little theory that I had for this week, question of the week, is where do we go from here? Based on like the question I had about is Wanda fully in control, and how does Agnes take precedence in this storyline? I think it's kind of like an Inception style situation. Wanda may feel like she's in control of the current events that are taking place. This is her fairy tale. But is it really her fairy tale? Because if it wasn't, if it was, then why would we be introduced to Agnes in the first episode? And then why would she be such like a character that knows so much about the simulation, knows so much about Wanda, and is like kind of trying to keep an eye on her? So I think what's going on is that Agnes is like really controlling what's going on in Wanda's head, but Wanda thinks she's in charge of it all. It's like a puppeteering act, I guess. Wanda's puppeteering Vision and all the other people who are in the simulation, and she thinks she's in control, but in reality it's Agnes puppeteering Wanda to do that. So, it's like a pyramid level situation that we have going on here. But yeah, that's everything I have for this week's episode and this week's review. Like I said earlier, this was a phenomenal episode. I really liked it. I think this definitely changed the way I was looking at this season in terms of content, in terms of storyline and character development, everything about this episode. Like, I think they have definitely hit the ball on this one, and I'm excited to see where they go from here. So with that, guys, let me know what you guys think about this episode. Let me know if there's anything I missed about what we know, what we don't know, or any other questions that you guys might have about the series so far. I'm totally excited to see where they go from here, and if any of my predictions are right, or if any of the questions I have get answered. So we'll go from there. Appreciate it, guys. We'll see you next week.